Good day, students. Welcome to our online learning discussion. This is Social Studies, Grade 9 A and B. Your teacher here, Miss Michelle Joy. This video is a recap makeup class, especially for the students who were not able to attend our virtual class in Google Meet. So class, before we go to our online discussion, let's have a short review or recap of the last topics that we have discussed last week. So the first one is, what is a market? What is a market? Markets are composed of buyers, sellers, institutions, and infrastructure. Others behind the scenes, like importers, processors, storage owners, wholesalers, credit suppliers, government officials, and policies. Markets are where buyers and sellers come together to obtain information and exchange commodities. And markets also happen through online because we have online shopping like Lazada and Shopee, in which people meet and buy their products or the services that they like. The second topic that we have discussed last week is about demand and supply. Demand is the different quantities of goods that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices. Supply is the quantity or number of a product that producers are willing and able to provide at different market prices over a period of time. It is what they provide from scarce or limited resources available. Now, class, let us read the objectives of our lesson for today. The first one is, students must be able to know what competition in economy is. The second one is, students must be able to know what perfect competition is. The third one is, students must be able to know what monopoly is. The fourth one, students must be able to know what oligopoly is. And the last one, students must be able to know what monopolistic competition is. So I expect that at the end of our discussion today, you already know the differences of these five different types of economic competition. So class, before we proceed with our discussion, so let us read first our topic for today, which is competition in economy. And these are the words to learn that can help us better understand our topic. So please repeat after me so you can practice your reading skills and your speaking skills even if you're just at home. Are you ready now? Let's start reading. Number one, perfect. Number two, economy. Number three, monopoly. Number four, oligopoly. And number five, market. Now let's discuss these five words one by one. What is perfect competition? Perfect competition is a market in which many firms sell identical products to many buyers. There are no restrictions to entry into the industry. Established firms have no advantages over new ones. Sellers and buyers are well informed about prices. The second word is economy. Competition in a market economy. Competition is common in a market economy. People are free to start and operate businesses that they like that compete against each other. Always remember, class, that if a supplier lowers the price of a product or service, of course, consumers typically buy from that supplier rather than from others. In a market economy, there is not only competition between suppliers but also competition between the consumers. When consumers compete against each other to buy a product, they push prices upward. Next word is monopoly. A monopolist is the single supplier of a good or service for which there is no close substitute. So there is only one seller in a monopolistic competition class. The monopolist makes up the entire supply of side of the economy. Compare this to our definition of competitive firm, infinite firms of perfect substitute. So always remember, class, that in monopoly, there's only one seller and consumers has no choice. They cannot choose products that they like because there's only a single seller. Next is oligopoly. Oligopoly comes from Greek word which means few sellers. So an oligopoly is a market dominated by a few sellers, somewhere between one and very many. Well, at least several of which are large enough to be able to influence the marketplace. Oligopolistic industries account for a major share of economic activity because these are very important products class like oil, autos or cars, automotives, consumer products, metals for building infrastructure, mining, and airlines as well. And the last word that we have is market. So market means sell, shop, store, trade, supermarket like Tops, Tesco Lotus, and even Big C, 7-Eleven. So these are example of a market. So these are the 5 words that can help us better understand our topic for today.
Meet Kathy the consumer. Like every red-blooded American consumer, she loves to shop and spend. Kathy makes her purchases in a market. A market is a place buyers and sellers meet to make exchanges, such as money for a cell phone. The economic system you're probably most familiar with is a free market, a market where the government doesn't intervene in day-to-day economic activities such as setting prices or telling businesses what they can produce. Kathy is always on the lookout for good deals. Some markets are better than others for Kathy. There are 4 general types of market structures: a perfectly competitive market, a monopoly, monopolistic competition, and an oligopoly. Kathy will usually find the best bargains in a perfectly competitive market. This type of market is characterized by a large number of small businesses that sell the same types of products with the same characteristics. It's easy for businesses to enter the market and leave it. Everyone has all the information and technology needed to make smart and informed decisions in the marketplace. In a perfectly competitive market, businesses have to compete on price because all the products are basically the same. Thus, Kathy can get the best price available because businesses will compete with each other by lowering prices. Of course, in the real world, a perfectly competitive market does not exist. The closest example is a commodity like oranges at your grocery store. A navel orange is a navel orange. The worst possible market for Kathy is a monopoly. In a monopoly market, Kathy can only buy the product she wants from one seller. No other business offers the same thing. It's very hard, if not impossible, for new businesses to enter the market. For example, a drug company with a patent on a new drug will have a monopoly on that medicine until the patent expires. Since a business in a monopoly has no competition, it has a great degree of power in the market. It can determine how much of a good or service to supply the market, and it also has a great deal of power of the pricing of its goods and services. The business can charge a price for its goods and services as high as buyers like Kathy are willing to pay. Of course, if the price is too high, Kathy and other potential purchasers will not buy. In a monopolistic competition, you have a large number of small businesses, just like in a perfectly competitive market. However, in a monopolistic market, businesses don't sell identical products like you find in a perfectly competitive market. Instead, they sell similar products. This means that businesses can compete not only on price, but also on different characteristics of their products. For example, there's a wide variety of clothing from which Kathy can choose. It's also pretty easy for businesses to enter and leave the market, like in perfectly competitive markets. There's also a good deal of information on prices and technology available to businesses and consumers. However, the information is not perfect like in a perfectly competitive market. The information is not perfect because it's hard to determine which product is the better deal if they are not identical. Monopolistic competition should sound familiar to you because it's the typical type of market we function in on a daily basis. Sometimes Kathy will have to contend with an oligopoly. An oligopoly consists of a few large businesses that sell either identical or very similar products. These industries are marked by a small number of businesses that require a high degree of initial capital investment, which makes entry by new businesses difficult. Nevertheless, businesses in an oligopoly do compete on price and other characteristics of their products and services. Examples of oligopolies include the oil industry and auto manufacturing. Let's review what we've learned. A market is a place where people go to buy and sell goods and services. A free market is a market that has limited government involvement. Market structures can generally be divided into 4 types. A perfectly competitive market is one where there are a large number of small firms selling identical products. Everyone has perfect information, and it's easy for businesses to enter and leave the market. A monopoly exists when one seller controls the quantity of the good or service supplied. Prices for goods and services in a monopoly can be set as high as buyers are willing to pay since there's no competition. On the other hand, a monopolistic competition is the type of market you find in the United States. You have a large number of businesses selling similar products. Businesses compete on price and different characteristics of their products and services. Again, businesses can relatively easily enter and leave the market. Finally, an oligopoly exists where there is a small number of large businesses that produce the same or similar goods or services, such as a car. Unlike a monopoly, there is competition between businesses, but it's not easy for new businesses to enter the market.
Discuss about competition in economy. Please open your social studies book on page 64. So class, what is competition? Competition happens when two or more companies strive against each other to convince consumers or buyers to buy their products or services. Competition is advantageous because there are lots of sellers and consumers can provide with different choices. Businesses. Businesses are categorized by the amount of competition they face. And there are four basic types of competition exist in the economy. They are perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. Now let's discuss these four types of economic competition one by one. There are four types of economic competition. Please open your social studies book on page 65 so you can follow. Please highlight the ones that you can see I highlighted in here. If I did not highlight means it's not important, okay? So the first one is perfect competition. It occurs when a market includes so many sellers of a particular good or service that each seller has a small share of the total market. Now, class, to be able to be having a perfect competition in a market, there are five conditions. The first one is a large market. When a large when a market is large, it means there are many buyers and many sellers. Number two, nearly identical products, same products, especially fruits class. When you go to the wet market, you can see different types of fruits. Easy entry and exit means low capital. You can build or make your own business or start your own business with a low capital. Next, easily obtainable information. Supply is easy. And the last one is interdependence. Let us proceed to the second type of economic competition. Please open your book on page 66. So the second one is pure monopoly. So what is pure monopoly class? So pure monopoly means a single seller controls the supply of the good or services and thus determines its price because he or she is only one, he or she can make the price. The supplier can raise without fear of losing business because there is no choice for buyers or consumers. They have nowhere else to go to buy the product or services. As the price of a good or services rises, consumer buy less. So if you are a pure monopolist, you have to be very careful with your price class because if you give a very high price, then of course consumers are going to not patronize your product or they're not going back again. Now, class, there are four characteristics of a monopoly or pure monopoly. The first one is a single seller. It means only one seller exists. The second one is no substitute or no other product. Next, barriers to entry prevent others to the market. And the last one is almost complete control of market price. Now, class, let us go to the third type of economic competition. Please open your books on page 67. Again, please highlight only the ones that you can see I highlighted it there. If there's no highlight, it means it's not important, all right? So, let's read about oligopoly. It is an industry dominated by several suppliers who exercise some control over price. So oligopolistic markets tend to have generally stable prices, okay, not changing class. They also offer consumers a wider variety of products than a monopoly would, like the one I have given you, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, New Balance, okay? They sell the same products. It's just the brand name that differs, okay? It depends on the ability of the consumer to buy. Next, there are five characteristics of an oligopoly, and these are the following. Domination by a few sellers. So few sellers means healthy competition, and there's only few choices for the consumers or customers. Barriers to entry, identical or slightly different products, non-price competition, and interdependence. Next class, let us discuss the last type of economic competition, which is monopolistic competition. Please open your books on page 68 and highlight only the ones that you can see I highlighted. If there is no highlight, it means it's not important. So number 4 is monopolistic competition. It is when a relatively large number of sellers offer similar products, but slightly different products or services. So in this market class, if a company succeeds in building brand like Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, or New Balance, the company gains a certain amount of influence. So your product becomes very popular over the market. And if that happens, it can raise the price of the product without losing any customers or consumers. Now, class, there are five characteristics of a monopolistic competition. The first one is numerous sellers. The second one is relatively easy entry. And the third one is different products. The fourth one is non-price competition. And the last one, some control over price. Okay, class, now let us summarize the topic that we have discussed. So we have discussed the types of economic competition. So the first one is perfect competition, idealized model. The second one, monopolistic competition, very competitive but with product differentiation. Next is oligopoly, supply dominated by a few large firms. Duopoly means two dominant producers. Pure monopoly, single supplier to the market. Class, it's time for me to give you the activity. Just click the link in the Google Classroom to answer the activity. And our activity for this week is in word wall. So what you're going to do is to match the sentences with the word given. Okay, so you just have to click the link. Good luck, everyone. Now, class, if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or ideas that you want to share about our topic, you can always send me a message in my in our Google Classroom or in my personal line account, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much. Stay safe, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.